Hey guys, J77 here doing a well overdue review, only I'm doing it a little bit different. And the reason why I'm doing this different is because of the movie, the controversy surrounding the movie, the people who have comment about the movie, people who praise it and criticize it for lots of reasons, which I will bring up. And that movie is Django Unchained. Now, one of the main reasons why I decided to prolong this review is because before even the movie came out, even with my impression of the trailer, I wanted to actually see the film, then see where everybody was coming from in terms of praises as well as feedbacks. One of the most feedbacks or criticism that I have actually a little bit surprised of was Bill.com. They had brought up some very pointed issues that I agree and disagree with in many different reasons. This goes back to my own personal experience with movies as well as audiences who sees the films. Other criticism, of course, Spike Lee and Kate Williams, they have made their concern about the film as well as the action figure that was being sold. I believe Arizona.com had them. And the praises that everybody else seemed to have about how the film was made. I'm just gonna go on record saying I enjoyed the film. I did like the film. I don't regret seeing the film. Did this film have problems that I caught easily? Yes. Most of it has to do with the script as a whole, as well as the editing and pacing. But other than that, the performances were outstanding. I thought that the film had did a good job getting its point across. And for the most part, I thought that the actors who was nominated for an award, minus Leonardo DiCaprio, really Oscars, come on, really deserve to be to get an award. Screenplay, maybe, maybe not. That's up for debate. But the only category I don't think it deserves to be there, and that's because I don't think it's a top 10 best film, is the best motion picture category. But that's a debate that I'm sure that a lot of people will have with me for the comment section as well as emails. My initial feeling with the film is pretty simple. Jamie Foxx's character Django teams up with a bounty hunter to kill some people who he's hunting down, who he actually have a description of. He have seen their faces, which pretty much form an unusual alliance during slavery time. The deal was pretty much simple. He was going to help him get his lost love back in exchange to help him hunt down the people that he's looking for. The film took a climactic turn when they reached one of the plantations, which was owned by Leonardo DiCaprio's character. And needless to say, things really hit the fan from there. This film had a lot of graphic scenes, a lot of image scenes that can make some people uncomfortable. Yes, the N-word was used a lot, but most importantly, the images that you've seen and how it was presented is really a tall telling of what Quentin Tarantino was trying to demonstrate and show. It is very tough to see, especially the scene where the dogs were ripping apart a slave. It was very out there, to having two slaves fight to the death inside the comfort of a sun parlor, while they're rooting for this mayhem to happen. It really is something that can really get you to cringe. There was also some humorous scenes, which I will say that was one of the things that Spill.com had a problem with, and I'll get to that in a minute. But overall, the film's performance as well as the image that was being shown, I thought it was well done and well put together. My feedback of this film is very simple. One, I didn't like some of the editing choices that Quentin Tarantino made, especially a scene where you have have a posse attempt to attack this carriage who our two main characters was traveling in. They was going to attack it. They was running towards it. They was surrounding it, and then all of a sudden you cut back to before they was going to attack it, and you had this 5-6 minute scene of them discussing about what they're going to do to the two main characters, to him having an argument about whether or not to keep the hoods. I found that very unnecessary, and it was a huge turnoff for me For the simple fact is, he could have shown that before showing the scene of them going to attack our two main characters. This is something typical Tarantino. If you've seen some of his early films, he have tended to do this a lot. He did it with Jackie Brown. He actually did it pretty much brilliantly with Pulp Fiction. So this is something that is nothing new, but in this case, it really was a turn on. It pretty much because you're already in the motion. And once they was there, all of a sudden they just cut right then. He said, "What the hell just happened?" And you didn't realize that he cut back to before they actually attack. And it got back on track on that. It wasn't done too much, but that was a very big turnoff. Didn't like the way he presented that. Also, the music, which it was more in between with me. Some of them did work well with the film. Others just scratched my head. Could you get a score, please? I mean, is it hard for you to hire a guy to conduct music for your movies? But that seemed to be his thing. I just say, okay, as long as the songs don't seem too out of place, I'm fine. There were some that seems fine with the movie. Johnny Cash, God's Gonna Cut You Down, fits perfectly. Then you had the rap, which I kind of smiled when it came on because I said this is way out of place. But there are some songs that did well, some songs didn't do well. Bon Jovi, I mean, he did westerns before, so I kind of accepted a little bit more than that. But the one thing I noticed that I really had a problem with, more so than I actually thought it would be, was the pacing. When nothing is happening or when there's a big major exchange that's going on with dialogue, the pacing tends to slow down a lot, especially in major scenes where no action is coming. That is the one thing I noticed very, very quickly with this movie. And also the dialogue that the actors was given, if it wasn't for those actors A plus performance, which they were very good, this movie probably wouldn't have worked. That's how much of an A plus performance these actors would have, because I think the dialogue wasn't as strong as it could have been, and that's not even including the N word. The N word, yeah, it was there, but that was not the only. That's not the real reason why the dialogue doesn't work. The dialogue is just. It just wasn't that strong. It wasn't that strong. It was passable, but only because you had the actors performing and saying these dialogue. If you had any other actors in there, I don't know if the dialogue would have worked the same. Other than that, I thought the film was fine. I didn't have a problem with this movie at all. It was very, very good. I actually thought it was one of Quentin Tarantino's best. Is it a best picture category? I'm not too sure. My heart says no, only because this is nothing new that Quentin Tarantino have done that I've seen in other films that he've done. So, to me, I don't consider this better than Pulp Fiction, nor do I consider it better than Jackie Brown. You can make a debate for Inglourious Bastards, but to me, it's a good film. But as for Best Picture range, I'm not too sure. One thing I will say, the Best Supporting Actor, yes, he definitely deserved to be there, and I'm hoping that that if anything else, he will be second runner-up or the winner. I wouldn't mind one bit. I just kind of wish that other actors who would perform here get some more credibility, especially with Samuel Jackson, who, let's be honest, when I saw the character, I said, okay, that's Uncle Ruckus right there. That's going to be our Uncle Ruckus for this film, and no question about it. He became my most hated villain, which made what happened to him in the end pretty much, yeah, you should have seen this coming. If he would have got out, you were definitely going to be he's going to save you for last, and he did. The film was good. I really did enjoy it. I'm glad I've seen it, which leads me to some of the criticism that I'm going to respond. And before I go anywhere close to this, I want to make this very clear. I respect everybody's opinion on this matter. This is just my take on the situation. I'm going to start with the fact that Spike Lee has said this film is an insult towards his ancestors, even though he didn't see the film. I don't consider this film as an insult as an ancestor as anything else. I take it as a very no holds barred description of how it went down during slavery time. We got to remind ourselves that we wasn't considered as human beings. We was considered scum of the earth, and he treated us nothing more like useless animals. We was considered as prophets for some, those who had more slaves because it was more respected, and that was it for us. We really had no rights, and they treated us just as nothing more than scum. They treated us worse than prisoners. That's how bad it was. So to say that it's disrespecting ancestors, you got to be more specific, because I didn't see it that way. If anything, he gave us a broad, I'm not going to apologize, uncensored way of how things were back in those timeline. Another thing is the use of the N-word. This was Kate Williams' feedback towards the film. He said, why does he get a free pass to use the N-word? It's a good question. It's a respectable question. But the same thing I have to ask, why do any celebrity, black, white, whatever, gets a free pass of using the N-word? Why do we, our black community, use the N-word so fluently without thinking what it actually means? And I say this right now, you can change the name, you can say it towards another brother, the definition of that word still remain the same, that you are a low-life scum, not even worth a time of day. That's what the N-word is, and that's why I do my absolute best not to use that word in any of my videos or blogs, because it is a very derogatory word that means all ill will towards people of color, and I don't think that anyone should use that thing. So this is the thing I had a problem with, especially with a lot of black entertainers, as well as us in general, who tries to adopt this word as our own. Why are we adopting something that means that has so much negativity to it? It's beyond me. And I blame that more on black entertainment television, more so than anything else. And I'm not talking about BT. I'm talking about the old sitcoms, which use the word a lot on their shows, more so than I actually could remember. Jefferson's, Sanford and Son. These are great shows, but they have used the N-word, and they use it more as a comic relief. However, it's nothing comical about that word. It's a derogatory word, and it means just what it is. So that's my feeling. I say it like this: if you hate the word and it offends you, and Spill.com had brought this up too, which actually raised a little bit eyebrows with me what they said. But I respect them because they did see the film. I understand why they felt a little bit uneasy, and that's because there's a lot of comic relief. A lot of people was laughing at a lot of scenes, and it happened to have the N-word in it. Their feeling towards it was, are they laughing because the scene is funny, or the way the N-word is being used? And that is a very good debate to have, because this ain't the first comedian, this ain't the first people who said this. Comedian Dave Chappelle had mentioned this. Paul Mooley has been criticized for it and actually mentioned it, and especially what happened to his friend who, for the first time in a long time since that incident happened, Kramer. He will be back on television, but he have used the word in such a way that it pretty much basically ruined his career. And Paul Moody was a friend of his, saw how powerful those words were, and he was like, this is his friend. He didn't believe he could have said that. But it does raise the term of why we're using this word anyway. Why are we using this word in any kind of shape or form? And that's the thing that I think that Spill, when they saw the film, and I remember what they were saying, because I saw it on podcasts. They mentioned it in their review, how the audience was reacting, and they was getting very uncomfortable. And I'm like this. I'm like, hey, they have a right to be uncomfortable, the right to feel offended by this. But at the same time, practice what you preach. If that word makes you that uncomfortable, then maybe it'd be best that you yourself don't use that word. Maybe it's best that that you realize how offensive that word is, and where that word came from, and maybe you should think twice before you yourself use it, because you can get mad all you want. If you're using it, you're contradicting yourself. You can't preach what you don't practice. So that's how I see it with the N-word. The N-word was used a lot, but unlike other films I've seen, it wasn't to the point where it was meant to be spit in the face of the ancestors. It was meant to bring a point that this is an offensive word. It was used for that purpose. And if you got offended and you got emotional seeing how the word was used and what was going on in this film, then that's a good thing. Only because it shows you that, hey, this is not something to be glorified. This is something to be discussed, something to be reminded, hey, this is how it was, this is what that word means, and we need to learn from the stuff that's going on. That way we will not repeat the same mistakes. A lot of people seem to try to think that by shutting out the past and pretend it didn't exist will make things better. No, it'll make things a lot worse. And if we're not careful, we'll be heading down that same old road. And God knows we don't want to go back there. We just don't. Also, and this is also connecting what Spill.com was upset about the audience reaction. I'm not surprised at how they got that reaction, because I always felt that if you go to a certain crowd, you're gonna get a certain reaction. Sometimes you get a good reaction. Sometimes you get a not so good reaction. Sometimes the audience can play a very big role in how you like or don't like the movie. You gotta be very careful how the audience reactions to certain things. A perfect example of this, I'll just throw it out there, is Christmas Vacation. And why am I bringing this movie up? I want to explain. I seen this movie 3 different times in 3 different theaters. The first theater, I was laughing, hysterical. The crowd was laughing. They was in it. They was having a good time. It was fine. I saw that same film about 5 days later in a different neighborhood, different location, and I sat down in there, watched the film. I did not laugh not once, but the audience also not laughed not once. And I'm like, this is kind of weird. But it may be because I didn't see it. I seen it already, and the crowd, they probably seen it too or something. I didn't make a connection of why were they not laughing and why all of a sudden this film looked boring. I went to that film again. For some reason, I don't know. I just went to see the film again. This time in a much different location with a different crowd. We had a ball. And then it dawned on me: was I laughing at this film because I thought this film was funny and great, or was I reacting to this film because of the crowd reacting? I'm not saying that Spill.com is influenced by the crowd reaction or the crowd atmosphere, but I do think it did play a very strong factor. They're not giving this movie a high rating. And hey, that's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It depends on what crowd you in. But it's not a bad thing either. But it is something that I think that Spill should keep in mind about crowd participation, especially when it comes to movies, because they can sometimes influence how we feel. It may not be. It's not the movie's fault, but it's just that sometimes the crowd has a certain reaction. It could be positive and negative, and sometimes that can rub off on the next person, including you yourself who's watching the film. So I have to learn not to let the crowd dictate my own personal feelings when watching these movies. Finally is the action figure situation. I'm just going to say right now, I don't have a problem with Amazon selling these action figures for one reason. They're not selling it to children. These are action figures that's a collector's item. This is something that is not old. This is something that's been done a long time. There are certain action figures that's out there. Freddy Krueger has his own action figures. I remember getting the Freddy Krueger knives, which was kind of funny because Freddy Krueger was not meant for kids, but for some reason they made toys out of Nightmare on Elm Street. There are just some collective items of some action figures that are meant to be collected. And I don't have a problem with that. Keep in mind, Spike Lee said there was no action figures about Inglourious Basterds, and he mentioned the word because of the Holocaust and the Jewish thing. You don't see them selling toys. Actually, they did. It was a limited quantity, I believe, but they actually did had action figures on there, but they're meant to be played with. They're meant to be collected. One of those collectors who have it still in the box, put it in the shelf, and let it grow in value. That's the kind of people who's buying it. Now, if you buy it for your kids, that's on you. Don't complain to the media later on that these kids, it was totally inappropriate for kids. Now, there's no question that some do probably buy for children. For whatever reason, that's their prerogative. I don't really care. But that's basically what they are. I don't look at them as toys. They're not Hot Wheels. They're not Barbie and Ken dolls. They're not wrestling figures. They're action figures for the sole purpose for the collectors, and that's it. Especially if you don't have the money to pay for it. They're not cheap. I'm just letting you know. On the whole, there were a lot of praises for this film. Do I think it gotten a lot more praise than it would have deserved? In some cases, yeah, but other cases, it's a good film. I'm not going to sit there and say it's not, because I actually did enjoy it. The things I did not like, I pretty much covered right there. The editing, I think the editing choices were not good. I didn't think the pacing was slowed down in some areas, and I thought the dialogue was in the middle, and that was largely because it wasn't a strong script, in my opinion. But I felt that the performance covered for that part. I felt that some of the imagery that he had was very well done, and it really focused on what you're watching on this film. Yes, it's a spaghetti western, but he's not going to sugarcoat of what type of spaghetti western you're watching. He didn't try to sugarcoat it. There was some funny humors, but it wasn't to the point where it's a slap in the face, at least in my opinion, towards what the overall theme was all about, and that was the main important. It's a typical Quentin Tarantino film. This is one of his better films. This is definitely a film that I don't have regret seeing. I thought he did a great job. That's it. As for the feedback, to me, Spike Lee's feedback on this film, I kind of respect less for the simple fact he didn't see it. At least with Kate Williams, when he said why he didn't like the film and the use of the N-word, even though I don't agree with why he didn't like the film, I can respect his view on the film 10 times more than I can with Spike Lee, because he saw the film, he had a reaction to the film. It wasn't a good, positive reaction, and with that, he gave his reasons why. I can respect that. I don't have a problem with that. Spike Lee, I can't, for the simple fact he didn't see the film. You can't criticize something you didn't see. The same thing goes with all these politicians, and half these politicians just want to just pretend that slavery didn't exist or make it go away. They don't want to even being taught in class. They don't even want to use slavery using history books. I got no respect for these politicians when they do that, because they're telling me that they are trying to wash away what has happened. You can't wash away this. You can't. This is a black stain in our history that has happened. We should just learn from this, learn from the mistakes, and make sure we do everything we can to prevent this from happening again. But a lot of people are so hell-bent to go back to the old ways. It kind of makes you wonder where their mind is and how they view blacks, Hispanics, those who are not of their color, and ask ourselves: Are they really doing this because they want to protect our forefathers, or is it because they are trying to do whatever they can to make sure they say our people never did this? It's all fairy tale. It's not even in history books. I really do believe they're trying to rewrite history. They're trying to erase history, and I don't buy into that one bit. So that's my feeling on this movie. As a rating scale, it is a 3.5 star film. It is a strong 3.5 star film. I thought it was very, very good. It's very, very entertaining, but it does have a few problems that I do have. And the reason why it's getting 3.5 stars is because, like I said, the performance alone really outshine in this film. The imagery and the unapologetic way he had presented this film really outshine the mistakes. And the mistakes are pretty much mediocre. Like I said, this ain't a strong script. It really isn't, in my opinion. This ain't a strong script at all. But it is not a terrible script. With the right actors, it can be very, very passable. You have the right actors doing it. I don't know how it would have been if Will Smith would have done it. I know there was a report that he turned it down because of that reason. And I can respect it because he didn't really go that far in why he turned it down, but he just said the script wasn't that strong for him. I don't know how he would have performed, but we had Jamie Foxx. In my opinion, one of his best roles since Ray. That's how long it was since I saw him in a good film. But he came with his A game, and I actually liked it. Everybody came with their A game. I have not seen not one bad performance in this film, and that's a good sign. The music, like I said, it's more hit and miss. Some of the music you may like, some of the music you're going to be scratching your head and saying, what the hell is it doing in this timeline? That happened to me. But most importantly, the film kept me engaged on what was going on, despite the fact the pacing is in the middle. But it did keep me engaged, and for that, I do thank Tarantino for doing this. Another thing I want to address before I end this video, because I think it's very important. I am kind of curious, and I've been noticing a lot more with Spike Lee. This is not the first time he had complained about a film about this, especially when it came to be depicting either African Americans or African American leaders. Malcolm X was a prime example. He didn't. Another director was supposed to direct Malcolm X. He protested against that. Pretty much got him off that name. He ended up putting himself in the name. It worked, thank God, because that's one of his greatest masterpieces. Period. But I noticed he has a great resentment when certain directors or certain people are involved in such a topic like this. I think the only person he hasn't really made any complaints was Steven Spielberg, and he did surprisingly two great African American based movies, The Color Purple and Emma Stone, both great films that I think everybody should watch. Um, I'm curious that if this was a black director, anyone, it doesn't have to be a big name, would he have complaints about this movie disgracing African American culture? I'm very, very curious if that black director would have been on that chair and not Quentin Tarantino. Would there be a complaint? Would it be a big deal? That is something I'm always been curious because I always had that in my head. Because mind you, when I saw the trailer, I immediately saw, okay, this is Tarantino. This has to be. And then when I saw what the trailer was presented, I said, okay, this could go two ways. This could be one of his best films about slavery, or this could be one of those films that everybody's going to say, what the hell are you doing? So far, he's gotten nothing but high praise. But in terms of Spike Lee, I have this feeling that some of his resentment is because a black man hasn't directed that film. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I really do, because I don't want to think that he has a problem with whites directing films. And I understand the heated argument because everybody has said this, both black and whites, about how a lot of the films based on our culture, based on our history, is always seen from a white man's perspective and not through the perspective of the slave or a black soldier or just a black character. It's always shown from the white man's point of view. And this one is actually, I think, it's more shown from Django's point of view than if anything. It's really happened. It really did focus more on Django and how his character was going from point A to point B. You've seen the stuff he done, some of the hideous things he himself have done to accomplish his goal. Because let's be honest, Django is not clean in any way, shape, or form. He did a lot of things that make me scratch my head, especially in the scene where the dog was tearing into a slave because of the fact that that the slave owner wasn't going to get any money out of him of any kind, and he had a chance to save him, but he didn't do it. In fact, he encouraged him to kill him, and that was something that I really was very, very something I did not expect. So there is a cold-blooded side to him that made very clear that if he has to sacrifice you to get this gold, he will. So I will say also, Quentin Tarantino actually gave us that point of view. However, there is a big discussion about it, but it's not just in black cinema, it's just in cinema in general, especially from stars playing characters of different Oriental descent, something that a lot of people have cried foul for a long time with Hollywood studio. But again, with that being said, directors do have a right to direct. They do have a style to direct. They do have a way. They do have a way to organize how things are going to be directed. That's what they are. They are the main people in charge of what's going on in the screen. He's the one that's organizing things. So with that being said, I don't think he did a bad job at all. But my curiosity with Spike Lee is, if this was, say, like Tyler Perry or any other black director, would we hear him saying the stuff he would say now? Would he even praise that director for doing such a great job of bringing the realism? So that's my whole thing about it. I also think that he let the word spaghetti western get to his head, because it is a spaghetti western, but not in the way that spaghetti western was actually made. He just made a spaghetti western and it worked, in my opinion. But I think he heard the name spaghetti western and automatically he just said, no, this is wrong, this is disgraceful. Our ancestors didn't have a spaghetti western lifestyle. It was slavery and that's it. Well, yeah, it was a spaghetti western film, but it still had that subject matter in hand. It's not Roots. It's not Roswell. It's not all the other films that deals with this very touchy subject, but it still had the subject in hand, and I thought it treated it with respect. So it's just something that I'm keeping in mind, because I honestly do believe that if this was a black man who directed this film, we wouldn't hear anything from him. We would not hear anything from him. He may have still criticized the film in some degree, but not to the point where he is doing now. I think that there's something to be said when he starts criticizing this film. Well, that's it. That's my own perspective as well review. As always, that you see the movie, which hopefully you saw by now. Did you like it? Didn't like it? But most importantly, tell me your feeling on the matter that I just saw and talked about. Tell me what you feel about this. I'm very, very curious to know. Like I said, I hold back on this for a reason. Especially I wanted to do it on this Black History Month, which, by the way, I'm doing an audio track for, another audio topic on, so I will be talking about that by itself. But I wanted to do it for this. Want to get the feelings out there. Want to see what everybody's feeling is about this thing. More so on the stuff I brought up, especially with Spike Lee. Give me your opinion. Let me know. Comment sections if you agree, disagree. As always, I will comment as much as I can. And until then, this is J77 saying take care, be safe. I'll talk to you soon.